There's increasing emphasis on wearing masks while flying. What quantity protection do they provide against COVID? James D. Morgan Images hide caption. There's increasing emphasis on wearing masks while flying. What quantity protection do they provide against COVID? Early within the coronavirus pandemic, aviation seemed like a risky endeavor. Some scientists even worried that airplanes can be sites of super-spreading events. For instance, in March, a Vietnamese businesswoman with pharyngitis and a cough boarded a flight in London. 10 hours later, she landed in Hanoi, Vietnam. She infected people on the flight, including quite half the passengers sitting together with her in business class. Then in April, airlines shifted course. Many started requiring passengers to wear masks on planes. And a few airlines even enforced the policy. Just on Monday, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said it now strongly recommends all passengers and crew members wear masks. So the big question is this: how well do the masks work? Do they create it safe to fly across the country for a family visit? Scientists are just starting to answer that question, and their findings offer a glimmer of hope yet as fresh ideas about what's most vital for safeguarding yourself on a plane. The new evidence comes largely from the port, where health officials are meticulously testing and tracking all passengers who land within the city. They test everybody by PCR on arrival, quarantine them in single rooms for days, and so test the passengers again, says communicable disease Dr. David O. Friedman at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. So health officials there know which passengers boarded the plane while already infected with the virus, and whether or not they could have infected anyone else on the plane. Friedman and his colleague are analyzing these data with a selected target one airline, Emirates. Since April, Emirates has had an awfully rigid masking policy. Friedman says, not only does the airline require passengers and crew members to wear masks, but flight attendants also ensure everyone keeps on their masks the maximum amount as possible throughout the complete flight. Friedman checked out all Emirates flights from Dubai to port between June and July. What he found is sort of telling. During those 3 weeks, Emirates had 5 flights with 7 or more infected passengers on each flight, for a complete of coronavirus-positive passengers flying on 8 hour trips. And yet, nobody else on the planes, none of the opposite, 2 passengers, picked up the virus. Friedman and his colleague report within the Journal of Travel Medicine. On another Emirates flight, a whopping coronavirus-positive people boarded the plane in Dubai. Guess what number of other passengers were infected on the 8 hour flight? Without the masks, he would have expected more cases. Friedman and his colleague found several other high-risk flights with no transmission, including an executive jet that flew from Tokyo to a metropolis, Israel, with 2 of the passengers infected with the coronavirus. They were all sitting in an exceedingly very small environment because it absolutely was an executive jet, Friedman says. And once more, there was no transmission because passengers were meticulously masked. The crew supervised the masking. In fact, since airlines have begun to require masks, Friedman says scientists haven't documented one super-spreading event on airlines. Flights that had significant transmission documented were flights ahead of time within the pandemic. Altogether, these data suggest masks are working and dealing well. There's encouraging evidence from a variety of flights that masking does help greatly, but it'd be nice to check it better. He says, the indirect evidence is, your risk is low on a plane if there's rigid masking. And that last part is vital. To stay the chance low on planes, everyone must keep their mask on while riding the plane. Why? Planes have excellent air ventilation and filtration systems, which remove coronavirus particles from the air about every 6 minutes. The U.S. Transportation Command reported Thursday. So the only opportunity to breathe the virus in comes from the air that passes by you before it goes through that ventilation, says engineer Lindsay Marr at Virginia Tech. Then that's only visiting happen if you are sitting near the one that's sick. In other words, thanks to a plane's filtration systems, your risk of catching the coronavirus on a flight comes almost entirely from the people sitting around you, which risk is lower when those fellow passengers wear masks. The mask will block a number of the virus particles individual releases into the air around them. It'll also reduce what quantity virus you aspire, and it'll prevent big drops of spit and saliva from hitting your nose and mouth. Marr says, I save my best mask for the plane. It's a pair layers of e-filters that remove quite you look after particles. She says, it's not my everyday mask. I can just hang it around my neck. It's more troublesome than that. You can really buy in masks right away, but if you happen to own one, Marr recommends using it, or perhaps a pee respirator. which has a plastic facepiece and particulate filters or cartridges that remove % of virus particles. On the plane, you would like the most effective theirs, she reiterates. But just confirm it fits well and detain mind. The mask doesn't protect your eyes, so you would possibly want to think about wearing a face shield or goggles or another eye protection. Also remember to disinfect surfaces around your seat, like the armrests, tray tables, and seat backs. You'll be able to use hand sanitizer or bleach wipes. And check out to try to do it regularly throughout the flight. Avoid touching your face the maximum amount as possible, Mar says, and keep chatter to a minimum. After you talk, you'll be able to emit times the droplets and aerosols that you just do after you're quiet. Finally, Friedman says, don't forget to wear a mask and socially distant throughout the travel process. While traveling to and from the airport, while waiting within the airport, and while boarding and exiting the plane. To me, one and every of the scariest parts of flying is that the disembarkation process. Friedman says, airlines can control people getting onto a plane, but getting off is often chaos because everybody rushes off the plane. For this reason, Friedman says, he and his wife aren't flying this year for Thanksgiving. They're taking Amtrak instead. Thank you for watching our free video. If you liked it, make sure to click the like button for more videos in the future.